Lenny the Lawyer Live. I'm coming to you today to talk about frequently asked questions about Chapter 7 bankruptcy, because the popular name for Chapter 7 and what many people think it's a liquidation. Now, a common question I'm asked is, if I file Chapter 7 bankruptcy, will I ever be able to get credit again? The answer is yes. What I offer for all my clients is, upon receiving their discharge in Chapter 7 bankruptcy, I guide them to reestablish their credit the right way, because there are a lot of things how the credit bureaus create a credit score that a lot of people are not aware of. Now, another question I'm frequently asked about Chapter 7 is, isn't it public record? Won't everybody know that I filed? And my answer is yes, it is public record, but it's not broadcast all over the place. People have to look. And yes, it can be found out, and a prospective employer who does a background check can find out about that. But under Section 542 of the Bankruptcy Code, you cannot be discriminated against merely because you filed bankruptcy. Another question I get asked is, won't I lose all my personal property, and what about my car? First of all, relax. As I tell my clients, yes, it's commonly known as a liquidation as opposed to Chapter 13, which is a wage earners plan, but that's beyond the scope of this video. You can look at other videos on this channel to learn about Chapter 13. In a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, if you don't own real estate or you have no non-exempt equity, you will be entitled to a wild card exemption, so that everything that's not otherwise exempt can be exempted. Now, as far as your personal property, the value of all your personal property is what that property is worth used. And if you have any doubts as to what that means for an item of your personal property, just look on eBay or some other website that lists used items similar to what you're concerned about. Another question I'm asked frequently is, what happens when bankruptcy is on my credit report, and how long does it stay there? I had a couple that was newly married. They each had financial difficulties, and they were still suffering from the after effects of COVID. And I explained to them, you have not done anything wrong. You're victims of the economy. You both lost the jobs you had. You weren't able to get jobs comparable to that. Now, in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, we're going to be based on the debts that you told me about, we're going to be able to wipe all that debt out. They told me they were worried about their medical bills, and they told me they're worried about being able to rebuild their credit. I explained to them the Chapter 7 bankruptcy takes approximately 6 months start to finish. Once we file your bankruptcy under Section 362 of the Bankruptcy Code, nobody can take any legal action against you. They were very relieved to hear that. And I also explained to them that I would guide them how to rebuild their credit. I also had another woman who was worried that she would be considered a failure because she was a single mom. She had 2 jobs and she still couldn't make ends meet no matter what she did. I said, relax. You're working hard. You've been overwhelmed between your credit cards and your medical bills. All of that is dischargeable. After your bankruptcy is over, I will guide you to rebuild your credit. And I explained in detail what Chapter 7 is all about. And she was very comfortable, because one thing a lot of people don't realize is Chapter 7 bankruptcy is not only is it your right under federal law, number 2, it's recognized by all major religions, and number 3, it doesn't have the stigmatism that it once did. Now, another question I'm asked is, what's the difference between bankruptcy and debt settlement and debt consolidation? Because recently I had a lady come into my office and she brought with her the papers from the debt consolidation service, and she had been using them for about 6 months. I said, and I looked up the debt consolidation service, and I explained to her, look, I understand you've been taken advantage of, but the fact of the matter is these people are engaging in the unauthorized practice of law, which is restricted to licensed attorneys in the state of New Jersey. This company wasn't even in New Jersey. And I said, for what you've paid them, for less than what you've paid them for 4 months, which has done nothing towards reducing your credit card debt and your other debts, I could wipe out everything with a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. So she asked me what she has to do to stop this. I said, you go down to the bank, you close that account, you let them know that somebody perpetuated a fraud, and you either get a new checking account and debit card at a different bank or the same bank. And I will be able to get back for you a significant portion, maybe even all of the money that you paid to this debt consolidation service. Most debt consolidation services and debt settlement companies are scams, and they have direct debits from your account, which can sometimes lead to overdraft fees. You don't want that. You want a licensed attorney who is experienced in practicing bankruptcy law. This debt consolidation service, debt settlement, those are all scams, and almost none of those people are a licensed attorney. Another gentleman came to me and he said, I'm a police officer. What if I file Chapter 7 bankruptcy? How is my employer going to treat it? I said, you have to be honest with your employer. You were a victim of circumstances and you got in over your head with credit card debt. And I said, under Section 542 of the Bankruptcy Code, you don't have to worry. You just have to be honest. They can't discriminate against you because you filed bankruptcy. I explained to him that not only is bankruptcy your right under federal law, but it's something that's recognized by every major religion. And I also explained that I've represented a lot of licensed professionals in various fields, including law, in bankruptcy, and nobody lost their license or lost their job. So I said, you have nothing to fear. Another gentleman came into my office. He had a job where he had to look sharp and have good appearances, and he was worried about losing his vehicle, which was on a lease. I said to him, just because you're filing Chapter 7 bankruptcy doesn't mean you can't lease this vehicle. Based on the type of employment you have and the fact that you're able to make your payments on this vehicle, but other things got out of hand, we should be able to justify this, and your income does not exceed the guidelines for a single person. So you don't have to worry about that. Another question I get asked frequently is, what happens if I get a judgment entered against me? Will that destroy my credit permanently? I explained to this lady, and she was only 28, and she was really worried because she had a judgment against her. I said, it's true, a judgment stays on your credit report for 20 years. I said, but when you file for Chapter 7 bankruptcy, you're going to get a fresh start. It's also got to indicate on your credit report that the judgment was discharged as a result of your Chapter 7 bankruptcy. Another question I'm frequently asked is what to expect in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy hearing when you have a meeting of the creditors. This couple was nervous. English was not their first language, so I had to have my bilingual paralegal translate for me. And I explained to them that, number one, the court will have a translator who will translate for you. So even if you understand what they're asking you in English, wait for the translator to translate it, and then give your answer in your native language, and you'll be fine. I also explain to them and answer their questions pertaining to what happens in a meeting of the creditors. I explain to them that the typical meeting of the creditors lasts 10 to 15 minutes when their case is reached, and very few, if any, creditors are going to show up. And from what you've told me about your debts, it's unlikely to happen. A 341A meeting is usually conducted by the government's version of Zoom, although certain trustees can use other alternative secured video platforms to conduct the 341A hearing. The whole thing is this: if you're facing bankruptcy, you want to come to a licensed bankruptcy attorney with significant experience in the practice of bankruptcy, because a lot of things can happen and go wrong in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy because you don't know the bankruptcy code, you don't know case law, you don't know rules of evidence, and you don't know how to prepare a bankruptcy petition. And the laws are constantly changing, more frequently than you realize. So when you need to have a bankruptcy, you need to call Leonard Boyer of Boyer Coffee LLC at 973-798-6131. From our offices in Clifton and Maplewood, we serve all 21 counties of the state of New Jersey. Now, if you have any other questions about bankruptcy, and Chapter 7 specifically, that I haven't answered, if you're watching this video on YouTube, first of all, give this a like, a thumbs up, and click on the bell icon so you're notified of future videos. Now, this video has been for information and educational purposes only. When you want a consultation about bankruptcy, we can arrange to have it either virtually or in person at one of our two offices, one in Clifton and one in Maplewood. However, we cover all 21 counties of New Jersey, and almost all bankruptcies are done by Zoom or some other secured video method. So I hope you realize that this video has been for education and informational purposes only. There is no legal advice given on social media whatsoever. And if you're watching on YouTube, a thumbs up would really help and mean a great deal to me. The vast majority of people who watch the videos don't subscribe and don't leave a thumbs up. In order for me to be able to be noticed by YouTube so that other people can find me, giving me a thumbs up and clicking on the bell icon will help. And please feel free to leave genuine, meaningful comments. And when you need legal advice, you should call me at 973-798-6131. For other videos providing education about topics commonly encountered in everyday life, please feel free and watch the other videos on this channel, Lenny the Lawyer Live. And remember, I'm here to help you. I can't find you, but you can find me. So let me help you and give you a fresh start. Don't rely on non-attorneys. You need an attorney that knows how to practice and is experienced in the practice of bankruptcy law in the state of New Jersey. Thank you for watching, and make sure you either call me at 973-798-6131 if you have a legal problem, or feel free to learn more about your legal situation by watching the other videos on YouTube if you happen to be watching on YouTube or on some other form of social media. I appreciate you spending your irreplaceable time with me, and I hope you learned something of importance from this video. Thank you for watching. Call me today if you have a problem. 973-798-6131.